As a child, we all long for a hero. As a society as a whole, we search for that leader that can be our hero. But as we mature and as we grow, it dawned on us that the hero is inside every one of us. And in the world's social media, we all start at zero. And slowly we search deep within ourselves to find who we are. And we have that moment of truth where we embrace that the hero that we've been searching for has been there all along. It is living deep inside of every one of us. And we start embracing that journey and we become that hero that we search for.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Zero to Hero, presented by J29 Creative Group. We are on episode 112. We have an amazing guest that is definitely a hero and definitely knows not only how to share his own story, but to really bring out your story and be able to share it with you and for you as well. His name is Justin Ricklefs. He is the founder and CEO of Guild Collective. So let's go ahead and bring him in. Justin, how are you this morning?
I'm good, Gino, and I appreciate for the viewers and listeners. I'm sitting out front of Old Shawnee Pizza on a picnic table because I was compressed between meetings, and Gino was gracious to allow me to take this podcast outside. So here we are.
Hey man, it's a beautiful view for sure. So definitely no complaints there. And we appreciate you taking the time to jump on with us today and talk a little bit about Guild. So what is Guild Collective? What do you guys do over there? What do you got coming up?
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. Guild Collective. So we're a KC-based marketing agency. It's a 12-person, soon to be 13-person team. We've got a little office on the Liberty Square. I know some familiar faces in your world. And our position, every agency says lots of fancy words and says they work with the biggest brands in the world and do amazing things, which there's no knock in that or judgment. For us, we kind of take a little bit of an anti-approach to that and say, hey, we're experts at human first brand building and creating emotional connections with your audience. And that typically comes in the form of strategy and story. And there's a million ways that shows up in the world. But yeah, we're on this interesting quest to help brands who are brave enough to share their heart find more good to do in the world. And there's lots of nuance to all that stuff, of course, but in a meandering nutshell, that's a little bit of who we are and what we're up to.
I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, and if you haven't seen a Guild produced video, I mean, these are true. I mean, you guys are tugging at heartstrings. You're really pulling out the why behind the companies and the organizations that you work with, and you do a fantastic job at it. And I love what you said right there at the beginning about everybody wants to be the best in our industry, right? They're working with the biggest. They're the best. Number one this, right? Number one that. But I think you guys share our ideal of what about the small businesses, right? What about the mid-sized businesses that still need that help, still have a story to tell, right? I mean, it's they're often forgot about. So
yeah, 100%. I love the work you guys are doing, and even your intro to this podcast. That I'm assuming that was maybe Kevin's voice, but yeah, like the voiceover is great. The journey, the hero's journey, the resistance in me, even as I watched that, I was like, dude, I'm no damn hero. And to then go, the journey, the hero's journey is one of conflict and pain and suffering and struggle. All of that like kind of came up in your video too. So anyhow, reflecting back to you, the amazing work y'all are doing. And yeah, man, like there's this underserved market that is not going to get on the radar of the big agency. And they have every bit of an important story and a dignified story and a customer base who needs to be connected to. Anyhow, that's
Oh, I think you're 100% right. I think sometimes those stories are even more so, right? In those smaller to mid-sized businesses, sometimes those they get a little washed out. The bigger you get, right? Your Nikes know how to tell a good story. What good stories are going on within that building? I'm sure there are some. Right? They are Nike But
Yeah.
point is, you know, they know how to tell their own story, right? How do we get those mom and pops out there and being able to tell their own story as well, which is awesome.
Yep. Yep.
So Justin, I want to jump into it a little bit here, kind of putting aside guild, and I know you've had a long career and jumped into a couple different things, and I'm going to dig into that a little bit as well about kind of that journey there. But putting a kind of the career aside, who is Justin Ricklefs? Give us your elevator
Woo.
pitch. Who are you?
Come on, man. It's gonna be a long elevator ride.
I love
it. So I mean, there's no pitch. To me, the story, it's like it's the same story, and it goes deeper or longer depending on how much time we have. But the story, the story is like, grew up in KC, youngest of three. My folks are loving, amazing people who are still active and in my life. But they got divorced when I was 13-ish, give or take. Endured some interesting and hard and you know, there's trauma is a triggering word for lots of people, understandably so. I had some of my own trauma. My grandmother committed suicide. Divorce is tricky and tough to navigate. There's just stuff, right? Like we us humans, we walk these roads of sometimes silence and secrets, and we don't bring them back to the surface, and they emerge in ways that are sometimes unhelpful as we get into our gray hair years, like I am. So anyway, all these areas of kind of, you know, again, sadness and struggle and different wonderful things too. Like loved playing sports and loved going to Mizzou and loved getting married to my wife. And we had 5 kids. Our oldest is a senior. I'm sorry. Our oldest will be a junior in college. Then we have a freshman in college, a junior in high school, a freshman in high school, and a 7th grader.
Bless you.
In this fall. Yeah, bro, it's something. And like in all of it, there's like a lot of nuance and context. And like did the career thing and worked for a couple awesome companies, Learfield Sports. I worked for the Kansas City Chiefs for 8 years, kind of 2 different stints. Worked for a company called Echo Select, who is a wonderful, amazing Kansas City entrepreneurial story. Jeanette Pringer founded that business, and she's just like on the Mount Rushmore of cool KC startup stories. Her son Darren is now the president and COO, and he's a tremendous leader doing amazing things. Anyway, and then had a stint in South Florida for a year where it was my first entrepreneurial swing through a family's business, and didn't go great. I contributed to that. I take responsibility for how it went down, but I essentially got fired after 13 months, and I'd never been fired before. And that was a really interesting and shame-inducing story that we kind of limped back to KC without a job and not much money left, and lots of like wonders and doubts. So anyway, long meandering path to kind of say like, who am I? I think at my best, I'm a man who's curious about his own story, his own self-discovery, how that intersects with how I show up in the world, with my faith, my family, my profession, my friendships, the relationships that are meaningful to me. And man, I'm doing my damnedest to like make a little bit of an impact for good, to tell stories that are a little more on the engaging and positive and hopeful side, because I think we're flooded with all sorts of stuff to the opposite of that, for sure. At my worst, I'm like a terrified egomaniac who struggles with lots of like craziness and lunacy and anxiety, and then the list could go on. So yeah, I like to see a therapist because I need some help.
It's not always good, man, and you're fantastic about letting people know that it's not always good, right? I mean, you definitely keep it real. One of the stories you shared recently on your LinkedIn that I really related to was the mall walker, walking with your weighted vest, like, oh, those are my people, right? The mall walkers. I thought, you know, I'm like walking around the neighborhood looking at that post, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm right there with them. Yeah, I belong in Metro. Let's rebuild Metro North. Let's get it back going, so I can go walk around. Yeah,
the hot air balloons and Orange Julius and the neon like weighted ankle and wrist weights. Yeah, let's bring them back.
Yeah, absolutely. You're down there close to Oak Park Mall today, I guess. You
That's
can go
right.
down there.
Yeah,
Get
that's
you
right.
a little
Yeah, I
walk
mean,
in.
in all seriousness, like I'm in this season of life where simplicity is just screaming at me,
Yeah,
and it's like this call back to the really simple stuff of,
yeah,
can you walk and talk with your wife a few times a week? Can you walk every day when the sun comes up and just try to be still and see what comes up? Can you write down some words once a day that maybe somebody in the world you connects to? Can you just be curious and ask good questions? So like, I don't know, man, like, can you watch a bluebird in flight and be marveled at how magical it literally looks? Like a blueberry. Like bluebirds look like blueberries. They're so blue and purple. It's
yeah.
like, man, in my
Perfect. Yeah.
30s when I was climbing the ladder, I was just too busy and distracted to like pay attention. So my life is like, I'm trying really hard to like pay attention to it.
I love it, man. I love it. As you were speaking, I was like, man, I was walking this morning with one earbud in, and out of the other ear, I hear birds chirping, and I was like, man, that's nice.
Yeah.
Like you get so busy and really almost so jaded as you build a career and as you get more busy. It's like, yeah, to get unjaded and get back to those simple, man, this is amazing, right? Everything, I get to wake up and experience this stuff every day is truly powerful. But you are great at sharing that story and kind of what your thoughts are. So I want you to talk a little bit about the social media journey, not only with yourself and how you're getting your employees to post on social. Kevin would definitely like to hear about that one for sure. But how it's helped Guild and share your guys' story as well.
Yeah, that's a long and awesome and good question. I mean, my personal journey with social, I've always, I shouldn't say always. There's been a period of time for me where publishing has become pretty common. Like it was I don't know. I don't know if it's something wrong with me or if it's something good with me or a mix of both. But I kind of enjoy the weird feeling of hitting publish, especially when it's a little bit like, I'm not sure anybody in the world should know this. Publish.
Yeah.
And then I kind of
Yeah,
hope, like that feeling, I think the word for it is vulnerability.
yeah.
Vulnerability, vulnerability can and has been used for unhelpful purposes and like kind of shock to the system weirdness. Okay. So putting that aside, I think there's an opportunity in the social media landscape today for truth telling in its most simple form. Like just to say, there's no judgment, but if you pop LinkedIn open and like criticized it or like condensed it to like its core annoyances, if that's fair, it's mainly people going, hey, I got up at 4, I had this amazing morning workout, I drank the like most incredible plant-based smoothie, I got in the cold tub, I meditated for 45 minutes, and I'm effing crushing it.
Yeah,
and you should follow me because I'm crushing it. And I have a friend in Colombia who I was sharing some struggles about Guild with, frankly, like 3 years ago. And I was like, dude, like it's freaking hard. And like, where's the money? And like I was just kind of wrestling. He was like, isn't it refreshing to know not everybody's crushing it all the time? And I was like, yeah, thanks, bro. Yes. So anyway, I think there's for people and people who work at companies, aka a brand, I think the brand has an opportunity to tell a story that's a little bit more approachable to the human experience of the majority of us going through life who don't have it all figured out and are searching for answers and are struggling to whatever degree with whatever thing it is that they're struggling with. So I don't know, man. Like I think social for me, I view it as a publishing channel. I view it as a bridge to connect to people. I've done unhelpful things on social. I've done helpful things on social. And I think in that tension of trying to view it as how can we who care about putting good into the world err on the side of creation versus consumption. And even as like we talk to our kids about social and stuff, it's like, man, at its worst, it's just this endless mind-numbing scroll of comparison, and I'm not good enough, and I'm bad, and somebody's making more money or whatever else. I think at its healthiest, it can be this really interesting vehicle for curiosity, conversation, connection, things of that nature. My goodness. Is that what you asked?
Yeah, no, I think you hit some really amazing points throughout there as well, and I love, when you really boil it down, right? I mean, it's from the creation of social media. It's been this like chase of perfection, right? I mean, that's almost like what's
Totally.
been forced. It's like this. Oh, look how perfect, and you nailed it, man. I mean, that's not authentic, right? I don't care if you're Mark Cuban or Mr. Wonderful or Warren Buffett, right? Nobody is perfect. Nobody makes
100%.
the right decision 100% of the time, right? There are some that are probably a little bit better than others at it, right? Obviously,
Yes.
when you look at investments and that kind of thing, right? But
Yes.
I guarantee you everything Warren Buffett's put out, he's cringed at a few of it or a few things that he's
100%.
published, right? I mean, it's being having that vulnerability to realize that the digital footprint is not going to be clean, right? You're going to step in some mud every once in a while. You're going to fall down, but keep going, right? Keep sharing your story. That's your story. So it's not going to be perfect, and if it is, it's
Yeah.
probably not true. So I love it.
Yes.
You nailed it.
Yes. Yes.
You nailed it. Now, Justin, every superhero has a defining moment. What do you think yours is when it comes to not only your life but your career as well?
Oh boy, that's a great question, Gino. I mean, my defining moment, again, it's maybe season of life and a little bit more in a reflective state as you ask that question, but this might not like get retweeted much. Most of the defining moments in my journey like directly have pain associated to them.
Yeah.
Or struggle or hardship or like
Yeah.
I don't know, like floundering and failure. And again, I'm not like being dramatic about that.
No,
because there's been
yeah,
wonderful moments. Like I've gotten promotions and done cool stuff, and I went to the Super Bowl with the Chiefs several times with cool clients. Like there's been lots of highs on the roller coaster, but frankly, I think the times I've changed the most, or I've like been made aware of something that I still have to work on, which I think that list is still a long one, is directly through pain and struggle and something being hard. And I think, especially in the entrepreneur space, there's this like, I literally think it's a myth. I think it's fantasy that you can like start a YouTube channel or TikTok channel and like have a Lambo in the next week or two. Like
right. Yeah.
somebody in the universe did that. So it's not like it's impossible, but the freaking grind of just like consistently showing up and putting in the work and being aware of your own humanity and your own insecurities and your own failures. Again, that doesn't get like a bunch of, it's not like a top 10 list to wield wild success here.
Yeah.
but it's to your point on the whole name of your podcast, like the Zero to Hero involves every good story or movie you've ever read or written or watched involves someone going through the really, really low points of the journey. And it's in those moments, those are the defining moments, the forged in the fire kind of moments where you're like, who am I? What do I want to be about? And why do I exist? And from that, they start to build into this other archetype of themselves, right? And a good friend of mine, Brad Hill, he summarizes this concept this way. He said, "The cave you fear holds the treasure you seek." And I think it's in that avoidance of pain or avoidance of reality in some senses, or in our quest for it to be comfortable, we ignore the stuff that's like, knew I probably should do that work. And in that work is where the treasure is. So I think in that weird answer is like the defining moments for me get like traced back to What'd I do when my parents got divorced? What'd I do when stuff got really hard in my marriage?
Yeah.
What'd I do when I literally didn't know how to parent a teenage kid. Like I've never done it before. So how do you do it? Like in those kind of defining, when I started a business and we about ran out of money and couldn't make payroll, like what did I do? And how did I respond? Who did I become? And again, a lot of that time is like, I wasn't really proud of how defensive I got, or I wasn't really proud that I like yelled at somebody when we got into conflict. Anyway, that answer is like, I think when we get our soul tilled up a bit in our soil, like those goodness seeds get to be dropped in. But if we avoid that work, maybe we don't have access to some of those pieces of ourselves.
Absolutely. No, so we've had a ton of entrepreneurs and leaders on the city on this podcast, and unless it's having children, which comes with its own sort of pain, as you kind of alluded to there, it's obviously abundance of joy as well. But aside from
100%.
that one answer, right, of having my kids was my defining moment, right? It's always back to pain. I mean, it always, and I think without those pain moments, pleasure isn't as sweet, right? The joy
Yeah,
isn't as sweet if we don't get into
that's
that
right.
valley as well, right? But I like the thing you said right there at the end, and I kind of relate that back to the dog in the corner, right? When the dog gets backed into the corner, how's the dog going to respond, right? Is it going to fight or is it going to cower? And usually dogs fight, so I love it,
Yep.
man. I love it.
Yep. Yep.
Now, Justin, villains have attributes as well as heroes. What do you think are the attributes that really kind of steer more towards that hero side versus a villain?
It's a great man. My mind instantly. Donald Miller wrote this great book, and I'll butcher the title, but it's some version of the hero's journey, or I don't remember. But you should Google it; it'll be very clear. Donald Miller hero book, but he breaks down 4 persons or roles that we play, and it's victim, villain, hero, and guide. And he kind of walks through like, the victim and the villain, I've played both of those roles, like maybe even this morning, I'm not sure, but like victim is like, oh no, everything is out to get me and I have no agency or responsibility and you all are bad and I can't believe this is happening to me. There is like legitimate, you are a victim of a crime or an abuse. Like that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like the stance of victim, right? And then there's the stance of villain, the stance of like, oh my gosh, like that person's bad. I'm gonna blame. I'm gonna go get. I'm gonna seek revenge. I'm gonna attack. I'm gonna be defensive. I'm gonna like go on the protest here. And so I think those attributes, again, as awareness increases and that like journey of self-discovery emerges, that I start to see ways that I've played the role of villain or victim, and both of those have different stances, but they're ultimately like at its core, they're afraid, right? They're afraid of abandonment. They're afraid of the rejection. They're afraid of love. Sometimes they're afraid of success or failure, right? And then in that hero stance or role seems to be one where, and again, I'm walking this road really imperfectly, but where you can take responsibility, where you can get clear on what it is you really want, where you can be generous, not for the approval of others, but just for the sake of being generous, that you can own the stuff in your life without over owning someone else's stuff. And that work, and I don't think heroes are like, at least in my estimation, like heroes aren't certain very often at all.
Yeah.
They are curious. They are humble. They are brave. They are courageous. They're vulnerable. They're walking afraid more times than they're walking like with all of the answers. And so anyway, but what I love about Donald Miller is that he doesn't leave it there. He goes into this, at some point we enter this like sage or elder or guide season where we start going, oh, this isn't just about my transformation. This is about guiding others along that path and being in service to someone else. Yeah. And again, man, I literally probably have put on all 4 of those hats like every day for the last several years. But to have language to it, and I love your question, like attributes of villain or victim to me is like the unaware ego, posture of us where we act out of a stance that we're kind of afraid and projecting. It's not that simple, and I'm not a trained therapist. I see one; she's wonderful. And then that hero and guide era is like, ooh, this is kind of interesting. Like to take responsibility and take agency and create something better for myself initially, and then others eventually. Those distinctions and attributes feel helpful to kind of frame up.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think you nailed it. And that book is called Hero on a Mission, by the way, Donald Miller. If anybody is hearing that, wants to check that out for sure. It sounds super interesting. I'm gonna have to check it out myself. All right, Justin. Last question here for you, buddy. If you had to pick any superhero out there that relates best to Justin Ricklefs, who would that be? And tell us a couple reasons why.
You warned me that this is a tough question, and it's tough in the moment. It's honestly, it's probably because of our 5, we have 4 daughters, and I'm married to my wife, who's a woman, and she, we have watched the Hunger Games sequence, however many, there's like 100 of them now, and Katniss Everdeen is just so remarkable. Like she's a badass one, so she comes to mind of like the attributes of, obviously she has to be a big enough badass and have the skills to survive for herself, but there's this like rallying cry, the Braveheart scene where Mel Gibson's like jamming the flag in the ground. It's like there's some like flag jamming moments with Katniss of like, no, this for the people of and I'm not the biggest super fan, so I forget the like precincts and all this stuff, but like Katniss has this clarity and confidence about her that isn't arrogance and conceit and ego, but it's also not like passive and soft and squishy and apathetic, right? And so there's just this like trail in the woods where Katniss Everdeen is like leading us through it. And she's like, we are gonna conquer bad and we're gonna create good. So there's maybe a better answer if I had more time to meander.
I love that one, man.
Katniss Everdeen comes to mind.
Congratulations on a completely original answer. Nobody's even hit the Hunger Games realm on this show and over 100 episodes. I love it, man.
That makes me way more proud than it probably should.
Dude, and it's such a good answer too. I mean, from the beginning of that series to the end. I mean, she's a little bit more unsure at the beginning, but she's very consistent in who she is and who that character is, throughout, and that even within the development of that character, she's very consistent on who she is, right? So man, that's a great answer. Justin, you're awesome, man. Thank you for coming on the show. How can people get a hold of you guys? So how can they see what you guys are doing? How can they get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, Gino, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you entertaining my curiosities here. Guildcollective.com is where you can find the agency, and then I've made it a personal mission. I literally write something every day on LinkedIn on my own personal kind of feed. Oh, look at you! That. So click.
We got it.
So anyway, website guildcollective.com, and then my LinkedIn, and then Guild. We are also active on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, that kind of stuff. Publishing stories of good and the cool people that work with us and the cool clients we get to serve and share their stories. So
absolutely. Some great interviews on there too, man. I mean, just real people, real raw people that are sharing their heart. And I, never heard of a couple of those organizations before, but I definitely do now. And great job telling those stories, man. Justin, you guys are awesome. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for taking the time, and I can't wait to see what you guys do over there at Guild.
Thanks, Gino. I appreciate you, my friend.
Hey, are we still live? Hey, guys, we're still live. Hey, guys, this is Kevin Kwok, founder of J29 Creative Group. So who are we? We're a marketing agency here in Kansas City. We're all about a holistic approach to marketing that builds your brand and nurtures online community. But to be honest with you, you guys don't care.